How's your day going for you?
Good, good. How are you?
It's been pretty hectic, pretty busy. I just been trying to stay on top of things and just a one man army trying to run this podcast, run social media, run everything. It can
Yeah,
be exhausting.
yeah.
That. So I wanted to I have like a lot of great ideas for you. And I'm not sure if you thought of it, but did you get a chance to look at that military creed?
No, I didn't.
Okay, it's in the show notes at the bottom. And I kind of wanted to tailor this episode a little bit to current, like current people in the military, because it was a huge thing in my job title. I served 5.5 years, and I came out as a sergeant in the Army, and we had to memorize all these different acronyms, all these different creeds, all these different FMs, DPAMs, everything, and I just believe it'll be awesome if we can get your take and your oop, what the heck just happened? To get your take and to get your information on what you think soldiers could do, because I think that'll be really beneficial.
Yeah, I didn't read the creed itself, but I did read the part that mentioned the creed and memorizing a creed. So
Yes.
yeah, we can talk about that at some point. But before you can tackle something like that, which is basically the equivalent to learning speeches, presentations, poetry, and things like that, which I do cover in my courses and my programs. Before you can get to that, you need to first learn the basics.
Okay.
So you've got to get the basic principles down first and then apply them to something like memorizing a creed, a presentation, famous quotes, things like that. But you've got to understand some basic principles first.
Okay. And I would love to go into those basic principles later in the show. But
Cool.
first off, Chester, I appreciate you coming on the show. Welcome to your transformation station.
Thank you for having me, Greg. I'm excited to talk with you today.
Awesome. Me too. I've seen your work. I've seen what you can do, and I'm really excited to have you. Like I'm a big fan. But let's
Thank you.
jump right into this as far as how did you gain your title, the International Man of Memory?
The International Man of Memory. Well, first off, I started out in my career from winning. I won the United States National Memory Championship. And after that, I wanted to go into training other people in the techniques that I needed to master in order to win that competition. I wanted to go into training people around the world in how they can learn the same techniques and apply those techniques to become more successful in their career, personal life, and also in school for those people that need to take various types of exams. And when turning the United States Memory Championship title, trying to leverage that into a business, there are a lot of things involved. And part of that is a branding, marketing strategy.
Right.
So I came up with this idea of branding myself as the International Man of Memory. I just thought that it sounded like a cool, kind of cool and interesting thing to
Mhm.
go by that might get people's attention. And I then hired a branding team, which involved a lot of different things. They created a website for me around this theme, International Man of Memory. Hired a stylist to come up with a look. That's why I'm always wearing uh, different hats like this. The stylist recommended that
Definitely your
as part
signature.
of the part of the International Man of Memory look. They created a theme song for me, and I've just since then built up that brand over the last 10 plus years.
That is just remarkable on how you just came out to be who you are. I mean, you've been on CNN, ABC, PBS, NBC, CBS, BBC, and I think the Science Channel.
Yeah.
Like, how did did you know this is what you wanted to do?
Well, how I got into memory training, was really random.
Hmm.
I just happened to be flipping channels one night. I caught a segment on ABC's 2020.
Hmm.
There was a segment on the United States National Memory Championship. When I saw it, it just sparked my interest because growing up, I would often get the comment from people. People would say, "Wow, you have a really good memory." So when I saw that US Memory Championship on TV, I thought, okay, maybe I can do well at this. People say I have a good memory. But I quickly found out when I looked into what the best people in the country were scoring in various events, they were memorizing hundreds of names, hundreds of computer generated random digits, decks of playing cards, poetry, all this, just a huge amount of information in just a matter of minutes with, near 100% accuracy. I quickly found out that although I was above average, I wasn't on that level.
Hmm.
So that's when I started doing research. Okay, how can I magnify, how can I improve my memory from where it's currently at? I did a bunch of research, experimented with a lot of different techniques. I found what seemed to be working best for me personally, stuck to training myself in that small subset of techniques until eventually I was able to win the United States Memory Championship. And since then, as I mentioned earlier, I've gone on to train other people around the world. Now, in more than 30 different countries, I've been booked to give presentations on memory skills.
That's really remarkable, Chester. Let's go into how the training went for you during your experience as you were at your younger self.
Yeah, so I read a lot, just about every different book on the subject I could find. I did a lot of online research as well. There are some techniques that I found just were not working for me at all. In terms of names, for instance, in some books they say write the name. Imagine that you're writing the name on their forehead with a giant marker.
Heard
Just
that
say the
one.
name to yourself over and over again. 3 to 5 times. But things like that, if they work at all, they're only effective in the short term. So the point here, I'll get into names later on if there's time and if you're interested. But what I really wanted to address there is that there were techniques that I were finding that I just didn't think were very effective.
Hmm.
So I stuck to the ones that I felt worked best for me. And later on, when I decided I wanted to train other people around the world, I started doing even deeper research and found out that all of these techniques, at least a lot of the most effective ones, originated from the ancient Greeks.
Okay.
So at a certain point in history, you had to develop a powerful memory, and you were not considered well educated at all if you hadn't developed some really extraordinary memory skills. Keep in mind that at one point in history, that's how information was passed on, right? It was passed on orally,
Storytelling,
right?
yes.
Yeah. So you really had to retain information. That's when all of these techniques were developed. And what I did was synthesize all of this stuff that I was reading about in more modern books, websites, and then took into consideration what I was learning from the history of the origin of these techniques. And then I developed my own curriculum, basically, my own system, my own way of teaching other people how to learn the very important principles and then apply those to their career and personal life. And what I found out that is when you boil it all down, there's really only three main principles that will apply no matter what information type you might be trying to learn and no matter what specific memory technique you end up using,
When you
because there,
say
there are a lot of them.
history,
Yeah.
are you referring to the a common known as the memory palace?
That's one of the techniques that the ancient that originated. So nowadays, some people know that as the memory palace technique, but really, again, that it originated with the ancient Greeks. It was known as the method of loci, LOCI, meaning location. It was also used a little bit later in history by the Romans. The Roman orators were able to give speeches hours in length from memory without any notes. It's
Mhm.
so this technique has also been known as the Roman room method, right? But
Yeah.
some people refer to it, as you just did, as the memory palace technique. Those are three different names for the same thing. It involves using locations from your environment to store imagery that reminds you of what you want to remember. So what you do is you later take a mental stroll back through your environment, back through these locations. The images that you stored there will remind you later of what it is you're trying to remember. So that's a specific technique. But again, before you start to learn those types of techniques, there are really some main principles that you want to have mastered first, and then you will apply them to the memory palace. And there's a lot of other things you can do, but one of the main principles is visualization. So you can't really, come up with these images and place them at locations until you've really mastered your ability to turn any type of information into an image or series of images, right? So that's a
Mhm.
whole thing of itself, a whole separate, really principle that you need to master. So that's the first thing. Whatever you want to remember, whether it's a name. So Mike, I might turn it into a microphone. The name Alice, I might picture a white rabbit because that reminds me of Alice in Wonderland, right? So I'm just giving
Mhm.
some examples of names there, but no matter the information type, try to visualize the information, and it becomes so much easier to remember. So that's one thing you have to get down before you start to learn things like the memory palace and other techniques.
I'm trying to relate this almost to character development. I mean, we just can't go out and start living our value proposition or our niche, but we almost got to have our very own principles, our morals, our ethics, and then we can start to understand what we want out of life. So is that kind of what you're referring to as far as memory? We have to have this standard that we hold ourselves to memorizing what we choose to memorize.
Sure, you can make a connection there like that. So, in other words, learning some guiding principles, right?
Mhm.
Internalizing those guiding principles, and then let those guide your actions from there, right? So, yeah,
Yeah.
same sort of concept. So, once you've mastered the main memory principles, you will then let them guide those. You will then let them guide you
Mhm.
to commit certain information to memory. So the second principle is involving additional senses from there. So we first we're visualizing, right? Second thing you want to do is try to get more and more senses involved in this imagery. So don't just see the white rabbit. Maybe you smell the white rabbit, or you
Mhm.
imagine that you're touching the white rabbit, right?
Mhm.
Involve more senses. You're activating more areas of your brain, and you're building more and more connections in your mind to the information. So then that makes it easier to retrieve the information later on.
Okay. And for those that are struggling with those abilities to visualize or see what we're talking about, how can they work on that process?
Yeah, so this can be trained. You can develop it with training and practice. So when I started out, the imagery that I was seeing wasn't crystal clear. A lot of times I was really forcing myself to visualize, but the imagery was kind of blurry in my mind, right? What
Mhm.
you're going to find is that if you will just be consistent in your practice over time, that imagery is going to be created in your mind much more quickly, and you're going to start to see that imagery in your mind more clearly. So it's something, visualization is something that can be trained. So you'll learn how to visualize, you'll learn how to get more and more senses involved. In other words, add to that imagery, make it more, even more vivid, more realistic by involving those additional senses. And then the third and final principle is going to be, while you are seeing and experiencing all of that in your mind, you want to make it crazy, unusual, extraordinary in some way. All right.
Mhm.
So you might want to make that microphone a gigantic microphone, or a multicolored gigantic microphone, because when things are strange, unusual, extraordinary in some way, we tend to automatically remember that stuff pretty easily, right? There is a psychological aspect to human memory. Greg, right now, wherever you're at in the studio, if while we're doing this interview, if an elephant suddenly crashed into the studio, if it happened right now and started to spray water all over you, you would probably remember that for the rest of your life and always tell that story. You're never going to believe this. I was interviewing this memory guy for my podcast, and during the interview, an elephant just crashed into my studio, started spraying water on me, right? You might
Nice.
tell that story. It might be stuck there for the rest of your life without you even trying to commit that to memory, right? You wouldn't even need to try to commit that to memory. So there is this psychological aspect to human memory, realizing that we can harness that, we can take advantage of it, and we can apply it to things that would be very useful to remember: names, presentations, facts, figures for business, exam material, right? So you want to apply that principle to the imagery, to the additional senses. You end up with three main things to keep in mind. And when you combine all of that, just, right away, you're gonna notice a huge improvement in your ability to remember just about anything at all.
With principle number 3, is that
Yeah.
comparable to, say, dissociation from our reality? Like, if we were to look back at a PTSD, an instant that happened as a kid, we struggle with remembering those things, or trying to forget, I should say, complete opposite, trying to forget, and it still kind of haunts us. So, is it something that's relatable with that?
Well, what you're hitting on is a little bit different aspect than what I was hitting on. So what I meant was, when you want to remember something important, something that might be boring at first, right? But it
Hmm.
would benefit you to know it for business. It would
Okay.
benefit you to know it for exams, right?
Hmm.
You want to keep in mind that if you make it in your mind crazy, unusual, extraordinary in some way, it makes it more interesting, more memorable, right? We automatically remember those things, right?
Hmm.
What you were hitting on is how emotion connects to memory. So it's very interesting. We don't fully understand, scientists don't fully understand how all of this is working necessarily even today. But in certain cases, strong emotional experiences can stay in your memory maybe forever, and you have trouble getting rid of those memories, and maybe they're bothering you in the case of post traumatic stress syndrome, right?
Hmm.
But interestingly, also sometimes those really strong emotional experiences can also block out memory, cause memory blocks, things that you just can't seem to retrieve the memory back. So there are those aspects to when emotions, powerful emotions, are involved with memory. It can sometimes really strengthen the memory, or it can, in other instances, completely block out the memory. But from my field, which is memory skills development, really trying to help people remember things that would benefit them to remember, for a business meeting, important facts and figures, or a presentation for colleagues and things like that.
No,
For
it's just
my purposes,
understandable. I mean,
it's just try to make it unusual, extraordinary, to make it more interesting,
mhm.
to retrieve it later on.
It's interesting with that, as far as just using that emotion, because it's something that we automatically do from an experience that was bad. So I'm trying to understand it. If we can use that exact same idea or method for good experiences or for current experiences. And what you were saying, as far as it's hard to stop that from happening. And I'm trying to understand it as a computer. If you have 80 tabs running, your computer's going to bog down. You're not going to be able to keep doing what you're doing. So that would make a lot of sense for me to understand on how our brain is operating.
Yeah. Oh, so I didn't understand. You were asking me a question. I
Oh
didn't
no,
get the question. If,
no, no, you're good. It was almost like I was trying to relate to what I was saying with with PTSD, as far as
yeah.
using that situation and turning it into a method on memory as far as using emotions to make it, rather than completely in distress, but make it enjoyable on memorizing something that you're doing or trying to. It's just
Yeah, I
an
mean, that is
emotional
something we can
outlook.
take away. Yeah, that is something that we can take away. We see that strong emotion obviously can get things stuck in your memory that you can't even get rid of, right? In the case of PTSD. So learning from that, yeah, we can then keep in mind to try to apply powerful emotions in a positive way to help us remember things that would be very useful that we want to remember, right? Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. No, so do you so here's a weird question. Like when you're at a store or just living your daily life, do you remember more average details about your day-to-day life than somebody else, or is it something you have to do consciously?
Yeah, so really, I would say probably just average or maybe above average. What I am really my field is again developing skills that anyone can develop these skills, but you would have to consciously apply it, right? You would need to think about using the technique. However, what is important to point out though is it might become a habit, right? So you can get into the habit, so you might automatically be using these techniques, right? To, for instance, remembering names. You just get into the habit of applying what I'm teaching you when you're meeting people at a conference or wedding, whatever type of function it might be, right? So as it becomes a habit, it's more automatic, but there is a conscious thought to use the technique. So without the techniques, I'm probably only average or above average. Yeah.
I see what you're saying. So it's a conscious thought in the beginning, as far as, for an example, like working on my posture. I will walk through a doorway. I would tell myself I'll walk through a doorway. Every time I walk through it, I will relax my shoulders. And each time I go through the doorway, I'm like, all right, relax your shoulders. And now it becomes unconscious if I stay consistent.
You got it. Exactly. That's very much what I was talking about. Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. So can you talk about the championship a little bit, just to bring our listeners up to speed for those that don't know who you are? You won that back in 2008, is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. I won the United States Memory Championship back in 2008. So it's an annual competition that is held in various places. It used back when I was competing, it was held in New York City, just about every year. Now, at certain points, it was held in Pennsylvania. Now, the finals are held at MIT, the University, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. That's where the finals are held now. So it's been in various locations over the years. One day annual competition, and we memorize. One event is memorizing the longest sequence of computer generated random digits that you can memorize in 5 minutes. I memorized, well, my official like in competition record was 132 digit sequence,
Wow.
memorized in 5 minutes. We memorize hundreds of names and faces in about 15 minutes. There's a 50-line poem that we have to memorize in 15 minutes. One of the most popular events, as far as for people watching in the audience, and as far that used to be, it's been televised over the years. So one year it was on Science Channel televised, actually. But one of the more interesting events is memorizing a deck of cards.
Mhm.
I guess because people relate that to maybe poker, card games, Vegas, or something. I'm not sure why exactly, but people find it pretty interesting. So it's the fastest time to memorize a deck of playing cards. They shuffle up a deck of cards. You memorize it. When you're done memorizing it, you will stop the clock, or the judge in front of you stops the clock, and they will then give you a second deck that's brand new with the wrapper on, new deck order, right? And you will
Nice.
have a maximum of 5 minutes to arrange that second deck from memory into the same order as the first deck that you memorized. And then they will place the two decks side by side and flip to make sure that all of the cards match. The memorization time for me, my official in competition time best score was just around 2 minutes, a little under 2 minutes. Um,
Wow.
in practice, I was able to do it in about a minute and 30 seconds. But the scores keep on going up and up every single year, as they do in physical sports, right? So a
Mhm.
world record in, track and field from 10 years ago is quite different. The scores keep, the limits
Of
keep on
course.
being pushed, I guess. So now, in terms of memory, the United States Memory Championship, there are guys that can memorize a deck of cards in even under 30 seconds now.
I was looking into
So,
that. Yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So, it's just really incredible what the human mind is capable of with the right techniques and just a little bit of training and practice. So that's an overview, I guess, of the US Memory Championship. Really, what I would like people to take from that, just the general listeners, I guess, general audience, is that this merely demonstrates what's possible, and I think it shows that everyone is capable of doing more with their memory than they probably think that they can currently do. It's just training practice.
Agreed. It really comes down to those habits, and I couldn't agree with you any more than that. For our listeners, I would like to tailor just a few minutes towards the military population as far as memorizing a creed, as far as looking at an entire page, maybe it can consist of about 500 different words to 1,000. What are some steps for those individuals that can really maximize their time to memorizing something like that?
Yeah, so this would apply again to memorizing a creed. It could be memorizing Bible verses. It could be memorizing poetry, as we do in the United States Memory Championship, right? Or famous quotes. What you've got to learn first is take those three main principles, and I'll quickly review them. It was visualization, turning things into visuals,
Mhm.
involving additional senses from there, and then using your creativity and imagination to make all of that you're experiencing crazy, unusual, extraordinary in some way, right? You
Mhm.
want to first apply those principles to being able to create a narrative from random information. So I'd like to go through an exercise using you as a guinea pig, Greg, and your listen. Just do your best. It doesn't really matter how
Okay.
it goes. And really, the point will be also for the listeners of the podcast to follow along so that they can start to develop these new skills and be able to apply them in their career, personal life, and school. Um, so we're going to start out with random words, so you understand how to create these narratives and apply the principles. So the random word list I'm going to give you is going to be monkey, iron, rope, kite, house, paper, shoe, worm, envelope, pencil, river, rock, tree, cheese, and dollar, right? That's the pretty long random list of words. Now, how most people would approach that, they would just write it out over and over again, right? They would read the list over and over again or just recite it to themselves over and over until they feel that it drills into their head, right? And
Mhm.
that's also how people would approach something like memorizing 500 words of a creed, right? They would just rote memory, right? When you do that, you're not making the most efficient use of the brain to encode the information into your memory. What you want to do instead is keep those principles in mind that I talked about and use them to help you to create a story. All right. So I'm going to guide you through a story here. It's just going to take like 2 or 3 minutes. People
Sure.
listening can follow along. The first word I had given you was monkey. So what I want for you to do, Greg, is just visualize a monkey. That's it. Okay. This monkey is dancing around. It's making monkey noises. Whatever a monkey would sound like. I'm working on the monkey impression. The point here is to see and hear that monkey in your mind. Okay.
Mhm.
You've got the monkey. The monkey now picks up a gigantic iron. All right. Like you would iron your clothes with, because that was the second word that I had given you. So just see that playing around in your head with your eyes opened or closed, whatever you prefer. The monkey is dancing around with this gigantic iron. It starts to fall, but a rope attaches itself to the iron. Maybe even feel the rope. Maybe it feels sort of rough, okay? Interact with it, okay?
Okay.
Maybe it feels rough. Now you look up the rope, you see that the other end of the rope is attached to a kite. The kite is flying around in the air. Maybe imagine trying to touch that kite. You're reaching up, trying to touch the kite, okay? The kite now crashes into the side of a house. Really see it in your mind, smash into this house. You notice that the house is completely covered in paper. For some strange reason, it's completely covered in paper. That was the next random word I had given you. See the paper. A shoe appears out of thin air now, appears out of thin air. Really see that shoe. It's walking on the paper. Maybe it's messing it up as it's walking on it. See that shoe. The shoe smells pretty badly, so you decide to investigate and see why. You look inside of the shoe and you find a little worm crawling around. See that smelly worm, okay? The worm now jumps out of the shoe and into an envelope or envelope. Maybe it's going to mail itself or something. I don't know. But envelope was next. A pencil appears magically out of nowhere and it starts to write all over that envelope. Maybe it's addressing it, that pencil. The pencil now jumps into a river and there's a huge splash like you wouldn't expect when it hits the river, okay? The river, you notice, is crashing up against a giant rock. It's crashing up against a giant rock. The rock flies out of the river and it crashes into a tree. Really see it smash into this tree. The tree, you notice, is growing cheese. You probably haven't seen a tree like that. This one's growing cheese. And out of each piece of cheese shoots a dollar. A dollar shoots out of there. The last word was dollar. Okay? That was it. Now I'm going to run through this again very quickly, though. And your job is to simply replay through this little story that you've created in your mind. And your listeners can follow along, play through the story as well. We started off with the monkey. The monkey was dancing around with what? It was an iron, right? What then attached itself to the iron? It was a rope, right? The other end of the rope was attached to what? It was attached to a kite. Yeah, you got it. The kite crashed into the house. Yeah. What was the house covered in? It was covered in paper. Yep. What walked on that paper? It was a shoe. It was a shoe walking on it, right? What was crawling in that shoe? It was a worm. You got it. The worm then jumped into what? It was an envelope. You got it. Something wrote on the envelope. What was it? It was a pencil. You got it. What did the pencil jump into? It was the river, right? The river was crashing up against what? It was a rock. Yeah, well, that rock flew into the tree. The tree was growing something. What was it? It was growing cheese. Yeah. And what came out of the cheese? It was a dollar, right? Yeah. So now you should be able to recall the entire list of words. Did I lose you there? Did I go out there?
You went out for a second, but you're back now.
So I put my phone on airplane mode and also do not disturb, but somehow a call was coming in. I don't know what's going on with that. But anyways, so now we're gonna see if you and your listeners can recall the list of words by simply replaying through the story in your mind. Each major object that you see in the story will give you the next word. So do your best, take your time, and people listening can see how many they get right.
All right, so we're looking at monkey, iron, rope, kite, be house, paper, shoe, worm, envelope, then pencil, river, rock, tree, cheese, dollar.
Excellent. Great job, Greg. Awesome, man. Under pressure too.
I appreciate that.
Really well done, man. It's not easy like when I just spring that on you as the interviewer. But you did so well that I'd like to see if you can do it backwards. Just try your best, and people can also attempt this listening.
So we're looking at dollar, cheese, tree, rock, river, pencil, envelope. Hold on. Envelope, then weird. Oh yeah, then it'll be worm,
Yep.
boot or
Shoe.
shoe. Yes.
Yep.
Paper, house, kite, rope, then iron, monkey.
You got it, man. Great job backwards as well. Really nice. Well done. Well done.
Appreciate that.
So, very well done. I think that your listeners following along, attempting the exercise, will also get most, if not all of them, correct. That technique there is called the story method. Okay. It's just one of many techniques that memory champions like myself use to pull off what at first might seem like, crazy feats of memory, but it's really just using the right technique and training and practice. So, as you mentioned earlier, I've been on all these different TV shows over the years. They asked me to come on, perform some memory feat, and then give tips for viewers at home as to how they can improve their own memory. There's nothing different about my brain at all compared to anyone else's. I've just learned these techniques that you can see right away are very effective. So once you master things like the story method, you're going to notice an improvement in your memory over time, even in general, even independent of using the technique. But that's if you force your brain to go through this process of commit things to memory, recall them, commit things to memory, recall them. All right. If you do that, that ability is going to strengthen over time. Okay. Because the brain is very trainable. The more you force your brain to perform a particular function over and over again, the more you're saying to your brain, hey, I need to be able to remember things. So your brain makes itself better at doing it. Okay. The brain's incredibly trainable. Now, we started along this whole path because you had asked about memorizing the creeds, right?
Correct.
And this could be, applied to, again, famous quotes. You want to, first, I would master the story method with things like random words, right? Then, when you have lines of a creed, you're going to memorize it line by line and take each line and turn it into a little mini story like we did there. But then that story becomes one line of the creed. Okay. You're going to put that story then along locations of a journey or memory palace, which we kind of talked about earlier, briefly hit on, locations from your environment. So what happens is, for instance, like if you're using your residence, you open the front door, that monkey's at the front door, and that entire story is stored there. That would be an entire line of the creed. Okay. Then you're going maybe to your refrigerator. Let's say that's the second location of your memory palace or journey. There's going to be a mini story there that gives you the entire second line of the creed. Okay. So that's it. If you go through just 10 lines, 15, 20 locations of your house, you've got 20 lines of the entire creed memorized, right? So that's how you do it, step by step by step. But again, you can't just jump right into memorizing a whole creed, right? You've got to master each thing very systematically. So you start with playing around with those three principles, then apply it to a very simple technique like the story method. Then you can start to learn things maybe like the method of loci, memory palace technique. And then there are a lot of other techniques that you can learn as well. I have got entire online programs that provide, 12 plus hours of interactive training. So there's a lot of things that you can play around with.
That's really interesting. How do we, like, I've noticed for myself, as far as I'm able to connect new information with old information that I've already learned. Is that kind of what you're speaking in terms of understanding our residence? Because I can look at the floor layout of my place and I can just see everything inside my head. Is that what you're referring to?
You got it. So that's what memory always comes down to. So you have something familiar that you already know, like your residence, and you're connecting new imagery, right? New information there. So you're using something that you already know to learn something new. That is what memory and learning will always come down to. No matter if you're using my techniques or no, no matter your approach, when you're learning something new, you will always be trying to create a connection in your mind between what you're trying to learn and something that you already know. So what this means is the more that you already know, the easier it becomes to learn new things. So you should actually fill your brain up with as much information as possible. So it's the opposite of what a lot of people think, and a lot of people use this excuse. I hear this a lot in at my presentations. I don't want to fill my brain with all of this stuff. I just want to selectively learn
Hmm.
all of this other stuff. I don't really need to know it. Why would I fill my brain up with this stuff, this information? They feel like they're overcrowding their mind with things, but that doesn't actually. There's no reality to that. Let's put it that way. People just use that as an excuse, basically to be lazy. Oh, I don't want to learn that stuff. I don't want to over clutter my head. That's not how the brain and memory works. And in fact, it becomes easier to learn new things if you're filling your brain with information. It doesn't become more difficult. So it's definitely the opposite of what most people are thinking.
No, I agree with that completely. I have to definitely work on myself. I've always thought like the more I know, the more I hate about life. So it's like, let's not think that way. Let's be more optimistic. The way I
You
see
can use it. You can use it in a
it.
positive way. You can use information in a positive way. Yeah, you can make
Agreed.
that choice. Yeah.
Can we use this information and can we apply it to learning a new language? Is that possible?
Yeah, definitely. So that's an entire part of my training programs. Memoryschool.net. People can visualize a giant fishing net to remember that it's .net. That is my training website. Memoryschool.net. It's an entire online school, and part of that is teaching you to learn foreign languages. You're going to learn Korean in the memory school and
Oh,
learn how to
wow.
apply the techniques to any foreign language, but Korean specifically is covered in the memory school. So yeah, I'll give you a taste for basically how it's gonna work. Um,
That would be awesome.
let's say I will give you an example in, let's use Russian because that's what I've been learning recently is Russian actually. Um, so if you're learning new words in a foreign language, you want to apply all that stuff. Again, those three main principles are very important that we covered earlier. You want to
Mhm.
apply that to creating imagery involving other senses and things, but connect this imagery that you're building to the new foreign language word that you're learning. So in Russian, the word for fork that you would eat with a fork is vilka,
Yeah.
vilka. So you
Yeah.
might commit that to memory by imagining that you take a fork, okay, and with this fork you poke some veal. So you're poking some veal, all right, with the fork, and right when you poke the veal with the fork, a crow pops out and kind of scares you and is going caw caw caw. The crow is
Wow.
cawing, right? So what you've got right there is veal caw. So when you have that crazy imagery locked in, now you're learning a language and you want to say, okay, what was that? What was the word I was studying? I know one of my new vocabulary words was fork. Fork, veal, ka. It comes right back to you. It sounds a little bit crazy, maybe, but trust me in how powerful and effective it really is. Using that and combining it with, say, like a memory palace, you can learn 100 words a day. Definitely in a foreign language. I think I really believe that that's very manageable.
Mhm.
Um, but whatever you're comfortable with. Maybe you want to do just 20 a day or 10 a day, but just following that strategy, you can learn a lot of new words. And if you were to go to memoryschool.net and sign up for the online school, you're going to learn again a lot of Korean, but then that's just to help you develop the skills. then once wanted to apply those later, you could to Spanish, French, whatever language you wanted to.
That's really interesting on how you just played that out perfectly. From previous students, have they mentioned anything about their like more optimism in their daily life? Because it just the way you describe this memory process, I just feel more enlightened inside myself. Listen, you describe that.
Oh, well, thank you for letting me know that. I love to hear that it's helping people. I'm glad that you've gotten a lot out of just the little bit that we've covered today. It's the most rewarding part of my career. It's really the coolest thing about what I do. I love getting emails from people saying, "Hey, I took your workshop, your online course, and now I thought I couldn't remember names. Now I'm remembering everybody at a meeting and things like this. And oh, my kid, I forced my kid to go through your program. He didn't want to, but now he's so much more enthusiastic about learning, and his grades are so much better now." I love getting hearing those types of comments. It's really rewarding. Memory is a fundamental part of learning. So when you improve your ability to remember things, it's going to have a positive impact on so many different areas of your life. It's going to play a huge role in your personal and professional development. So I really hope that after today's interview, people will be encouraged to delve deeper into this and really develop these new beneficial skills. And I set up for your listeners, the coupon code is going to be TS for Transformation Station. So they can use code TS to get started without the enrollment fee. So usually there's an upfront enrollment fee in the school, but that will be waived with that coupon code for, well, I set it up for 50 uses. I don't know how many people are going to want to try it out, but I set it up to be valid for 50 uses, that coupon code.
That's awesome, Chester. I really do appreciate that. I will link all this in the show notes. I just have a couple more questions before I let you go.
Yep.
Suppose you were to contact your younger self and share the information that you learned today. What would you let your younger self know, and how do you think he would react to that?
Yeah, I think, one of the lessons that I've learned over time, and I try to share that message in various ways on my social media and things like that. Get started. So if there's something that you're interested in, now, something that interests you, whether it's learning a new language, whether it's developing these memory skills, whatever it might be, just get started right away. Like today, as soon as you feel that interest, get started, because there's a quote that I've put up sometimes in various places, my social media accounts, and that is, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to become great, right? Or to be great. And it's absolutely true. So I wish I would tell my younger self, I wish I would have gotten started earlier, basically in not only developing memory skills, but in a lot of other things that I appreciate now, in terms of my skills, in terms of my professional, personal development. Um, I'm amazed and grateful for what I've been able to do, but I wish I would have started on my journey earlier. And I think it was just, well, I'm not sure why, but again, just get started and you'll start along that path.
Chester, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah. So really, if you want to learn more about memory skills development, the best thing is to go to memoryschool.net, use the coupon code TS for your listeners. So first 50 people won't have to even pay any enrollment fee. You'll just pay for monthly access as long as you want to. You can cancel at any time, just like any other membership program. And if you want to follow me on social media, the one that I keep it up with the most is Instagram. So I'm Chester J. Santos on Instagram. And for any sort of professional connections, if you're interested in booking me for your company, or some sort of corporate event or conference, get in touch with me, or even just connect now on LinkedIn in case something might come up in the future. LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. I will link all that in the show notes. And one last question. Have I Is there anything you would like to say before I let you go?
Really, I just want to, I guess, that last question, drill in that last question that you had asked me, and that I really just encourage people, if something interests you, get started right away and just take small steps. You don't have to invest a lot of time in developing new skills. What's more important is consistency. So you choose, even if it's just 10 minutes a week, that's it, 10 minutes total for the week. If you do that every week, over time, you're going to notice a dramatic improvement in whatever area it is that you're trying to develop yourself in. So get started and be consistent over time.
Excellent, Chester. I really do appreciate your time, and I thank you for coming on your transformation station.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Click. All right. Chester, is there anything I can help you out with as far as getting connected with a special audience? I still have a lot of people that I know that are still in the military in Fort Carson, Colorado, in Texas, in Virginia. I don't know about California. I think there's people there, but I would love to try to get you in front of a military audience because their whole job is stressed every day about memorizing acronyms, weapons, uh, creeds, everything. That's what their job's all about. And I would love to get you in front of that audience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very interested. Whatever you think makes sense in terms of any connections you could provide to various groups. I'm doing Zoom presentations now. So, I could do like a 30-minute or 60-minute presentation, and then basically, drive people to memoryschool.net.
Okay.
Or if whatever you think makes sense, we could do something like that. Get together a small group of military people that wanted to attend a 1 hour Zoom call or 30-minute Zoom call. And then I would give some kind of offer for the memory school at the end.
Okay.
That's one option, or maybe just directly tell people to connect with me on, LinkedIn or Instagram. Whatever
Okay.
you think makes the most sense, because that audience. But
Yes.
definitely, I'm definitely interested in connecting with them, and I'm very interested in helping them apply these types of techniques to make their lives easier in terms of what they have to commit to memory. I realized that I made a mistake. I guess I made the coupon code TS for Transformation Station.
Mhm.
Will that be confusing to people, or not really? Because you're going to put it in the show notes, because the show is actually your transformation station. So I guess people won't be confused though, because you're going to put it in the show notes, right?
Yes,
So,
I'll put in the show notes and I'll highlight that just to let them know so there's no
okay, cool.
confusion. And
Awesome.
just to reiterate with the military, I was working at brigade and I assisted the colonel, which I delegated authority to about 4,500 different troops.
Wow.
So I was in charge of a large population of
Wow.
soldiers, and I still have connections within that brigade.
Oh,
So
wow.
if I can get you in front of a crowd of maybe 100 to 200, will you be able to still do that through like a Zoom presentation? I don't know what's happening with this whole pandemic as far as
Yeah.
military installations.
Yeah, totally. Let's try to make it happen. I would love to do it. It would be, great for me to do it. We'll just do like a 1 hour Zoom.
Okay.
You can, you could just organize it, invite people. We would agree on a date and time.
Hmm.
Um, you can just invite people to the Zoom meeting. I wouldn't even charge for that presentation, up to 1 hour on Zoom. What I would do is just at the end say, the first 50 people that sign up are going to get this special offer for the memory school, something like that. So it's
Okay.
helping me to promote and hopefully get people signed up for that online program. And it's, helping them to, even in the 1 hour, like as we did with the interview today,
Yes.
they're going to learn a lot of stuff for free, in the 1 hour. So,
Awesome. I really do appreciate your time, Chester, and I apologize for the mix up. That is
Oh,
completely
no problem.
my fault. But
Oh,
I
no
will.
problem at all. It happens a lot when scheduling things with people all over the world. It's common for the time zones to get mixed up. But I'm glad we were able to connect in the end. Let me know if you need anything else from me. And in the meantime, I will just look forward to the episode airing and to any connections you might make or setting up any Zoom presentation. That would be great.
Awesome. Thank you, Chester, so much. I will
Thank you,
email
Greg.
you. You're very welcome. You have a good day.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, thanks a lot, Greg. Bye. Keep in touch. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Bye-bye. Bye.